Suzanne, it's so good to have you joining me on the podcast today. Thanks so much for being here. I've been really looking forward to having you on on this episode.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
I know we were just chatting before we click record about like we've been wanting to do this for a couple of weeks now, and today's finally the day, and I'm really looking forward to chatting to you about your story. I know you have a really inspiring story building your jewelry business, and you've had a lot of experience in the jewelry industry as well. And so I think a lot of our listeners are really going to find it so inspiring. So before we dive in, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to our listeners and just share a little bit more about how you got to where you are today?
Sure. Yep. I'm Suzanne. I own Spizani Designs. I'm a jeweler, traditionally trained. And I went to school probably 20 years ago, was in and out of school back and forth, did a bit of apprenticing as well too, finally graduated, and I am what a former teacher calls a serial entrepreneur. So I've done retail stores, custom work and repairs, and now I'm in a home studio, just focusing on my own work, one of a kind and small production. And yeah, that's about it.
Amazing. Okay. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into your story, if that's okay with you.
Yep.
Because, I think you have a really, really interesting story. And I think there's going to be listeners who may resonate with it or are definitely going to learn from it as well. And, so I know you've been in the jewelry industry for many, many years now. And I think for like about 10 years, I think that's what you shared, you did really, really well. You had successful jewelry businesses that
Yeah.
were doing well. Can you share a little bit about that? Because I know from the outside it looked really successful and it was really successful, but it didn't really fulfill you at a soul level, at
Mhm.
least towards the end. Can you tell
Yeah.
us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, for sure. When I graduated school, I went into retail right away, had my own shop, carried other designers, and was capable technically of being able to take on custom work and repairs. So that's kind of where I gravitated towards. And yes, it was good money. I struggled though a lot to keep up and to stay on top of things. Fast forward to the switch that I've made in the last couple of years, working for myself, working from home, getting completely out of retail, custom work, and repairs, and then being diagnosed with ADHD. So that was a new diagnosis, and I got that just before I met you, and everything just kind of clicked for me. So my kind of natural talents and gifts being handmaking and the technical side of things were really strong, but the administrative, the organization, the rest of that was chronically overwhelming. So that's what I struggled most with. Just not really knowing that though as I was going through it. So yeah, so I've been able to kind of streamline it and narrow it down and work with my strengths and hire out my weaknesses and focus on what I really want to do, which is actually more aligned with what my strengths are. So
Okay, I really, really love that. And thank you for sharing that. And, I know, so there's a lot of things that kind of fell into place, I guess, just before we started working together, actually, like the ADHD and all of this. And I also remember back when we first started working together, I think you mentioned that you felt like you weren't a real designer or a real artist in some ways. Do you
yeah.
remember that conversation?
Yeah, for sure. A bit of imposter syndrome, probably, where I hadn't caught up with what my skills and my capabilities actually were. So I absolutely felt like a fraud.
Which is so it's so interesting because I see that so much, and it's always with the most talented designers. Like you are one of the most talented designers, and to see people who are working at such a high level experiencing imposter syndrome shows you how like there's just so many people who feel that way, and it's really it's tough to see, and it's a really tough thing to work through as well. So what would you say to somebody who's listening to this and is like, oh my goodness, I feel like an imposter and I've been making jewelry for so many years and selling it, and I still don't feel like a real designer. what advice would you have to them into stepping into their true authentic self and acknowledging that they're a real designer and not waiting for some outside validation?
Yeah. I would say for me, and this is not what they tell you to do, but compare yourself to other people and figure out in that, kind of line or skill set or whatever it is that you think that you're weak in. Just compare yourself to see where you're really at, because quite often I think we underestimate ourselves, but being able to compare where you're at, or at least see where other people are at and how long they've been doing it for, allows you to kind of slot yourself in where you actually are and get realistic with where you really are compared to where you think you are. Yeah, it's probably not what everybody they don't compare yourself. I'm like, no, it's great to kind of align yourself with people that are doing a similar type thing, that have the same type of skill set as well too. For me, skill set and technical side of it is really important to me. So that's what I ended up doing, was just finding other people and surrounding myself with other people that could teach me and could help me out and help me to get self-actualized, I call it. So just getting real with what's really going on rather than kind of living in your head too much. So compare yourself.
I love that. Not very conventional advice, but it's actually really practical, and there is that element of, okay, we're such harsh critics of ourselves, but when you take a step back and you look at like, okay, here's what I'm making, really technical, like you're really technical. The other really technical, talented designers are making, and you're like, okay, well, we're at the same level. So if they're a designer, I'm a designer too. So I think that is good advice, and it's interesting. It's often the more talented, more knowledgeable designers that hesitate to call themselves designers, from what I've seen. And I don't know if it's one of those things, the more you know, the less qualified you feel.
Yes.
The more you're like, oh, I don't know all this other stuff. So I think there could be a component of that as well. But how has your style of design changed, like from the previous 10 years to like now, since the past like 6 months to a year? Your style has really changed. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and why that is?
Because it's directed by myself now. Custom work is always influenced from what someone else wants. And there's challenges with that. It can be a lot of fun as well too, having a structure and some guidelines, but for me, it's about diving into what makes me tick, right? What I personally would wear. So as soon as I started to adopt the motto of it doesn't have to sell, in fact, make stuff that you think won't sell and start there and work backwards. Make something that you absolutely do not think is going to sell, that you don't like, or that you don't think people will like, and work backwards from there, then you can't really fail, right? So I think for me, it was just about embracing not being directed and having to self-direct, because that's ultimately, I find, what retail is. And especially in Canada, there's kind of two separate pools, right? Kind of commercial jewelry versus handmade goldsmithing, smaller stores and shops. So just embracing the unknown, what you haven't done before. And I'm a big advocate of education and pushing myself. I'm constantly toying with the idea of going back to school or what to do, how to get better and how to move forward. So just within that quest of the imposter syndrome of trying to kind of like shift that a little bit, I'm always just pushing myself to do something that.
Okay, so I really, really love this, because I actually see a lot of jewelry business owners making this sort of mistake where when they're designing and making, they're always thinking, are people going to buy this first? And that kind of traps you in a lot of different ways, and it makes you follow and hop on trends, which then means you're competing with a whole lot of other people as well, not necessarily in terms of what you were doing, but in terms of what I've seen other designers doing. And so they're always looking for like externally, like what are people wanting to buy? Whereas what you've like done over the past few months is really gone inward and been like, okay, what is it I stand for? What is it that I want to create? And just forget about selling it, forget about your customers, And I feel like you've really connected to your customers even more with these new pieces because they're bringing out more of your personality, different sides. There's a lot of depth to your designs as well. How would you say, have you seen that your customers are loving the new designs and the new route that you've taken?
Yeah, and just recently, like just within the last, I would say like month or so, where I've kind of gone, okay, so this is a lot more feedback and a lot more engagement and a lot more community and dialogue and being out there without really having to try. So the shift to doing my own work, yeah, completely terrifying for sure. Because it's been a long time. I think probably since school in the beginning stages was the last time that I really made something on my own. Yeah, but once I kind of embraced that and said, well, I have nothing left to lose because I removed everything off of my plate, you know, things just start to grow from there. So it's just been really recently that I'm like, okay, this feels familiar. This is good. This is okay. And not really seemingly having to try. It's just kind of putting all of the work up until kind of now. I'm like, okay, I can sit back a little bit and just can continue on. Yeah. And embrace being able to, yeah, be accepted and supported for who I am, which I just feel like I've started like the tip of the iceberg of figuring
That out.
and developing my own personal style. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people can resonate with that, you know, especially if you've gotten like 10, 15 years of putting yourself in a box and now you're slowly letting yourself out and letting yourself have fun designing and exploring what it is that you're wanting to make, and hearing that like you've done a lot of foundation work in your business, obviously, and now you're starting to see that your customers are loving what you're putting out there, which is really great to hear. And I'd love to touch a little bit on how coaching has supported you over the past few months, because you have been a part of the Jewelry Business Academy and we're still working together. And I'd love it if you could briefly share your experience of the program for any listeners who are curious about the Jewelry Business Academy. But before we dive into that, can you just share how you were feeling before we started working together? I think it was back in like August, September 2022.
Yeah.
Do you remember how you were feeling back then?
Yeah, defeated and terrified. I just think it's been something on my mind for so long, kind of branching off and going my own direction, that I just sat with that for way too long and overthought that for way too long. One of the first things that you had said to me when I told you that I was terrified, I think you gave me a video challenge to do or something, or get on camera. You know me, I'm deathly shy. And your response was, yeah, I understand, but we're doing it anyway. And I was like, oh, that was huge for me. That was kind of hit the ground running, like, okay, I guess we're doing it anyway. So yeah.
Feel the fear and do it anyway. I know I've said
like,
that
I
to you a
didn't know
lot.
that was an option. I just thought you were supposed to not do it.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting, because I think that's what stops a lot of people from like taking action, is like, oh, I'm scared, so that means we don't do it. But it's your body just protecting you, and it's like, okay, well, what's the worst that can happen? And in this situation, nothing really bad is going to happen. So it's worth like just doing it anyway, taking action. And so what made you realize, if you look back, what was your like aha moment when you were like, okay, you know what, I'm ready for support. I'm ready for like that support on my journey?
I have to think back, because I was in that limbo of being in my head too much and not really in the studio. And I had just built a new studio with the intention of coming back and doing custom work and repairs. And I remember, you know, as it was getting closer and closer to completion, and I'm tearing up now, I just sat here and I bawled and I said, I can't do it anymore. Sorry. Yeah. I just said, I can't do it anymore. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I can't do it anymore. And that's toying around with the idea of going back to school and, you know, career change, doing something else. And I was like, well, it's not something else. I just have to figure out a way to be able to do this and make it my own, and not having, you know, employees or customers coming through, or being in retail, or even like having a home studio in a larger community was really isolating and limiting for me. And I missed that environment and just having contact with people. And then as well, knowing with the ADHD that I would need a lot of structure and support. That was a huge a huge driving factor into getting a coach, somebody one-on-one that had experience with jewelry, but as well as the organization and the structure and the small business side of it. So a long thing.
Amazing. And I'd love to know, like, what has your experience been of like working with me and being in the Jewelry Business Academy so far? Like, what's your experience been? What have you enjoyed the most?
My experience has been great. You were one of the most understanding, genuine people that I've met in a long time, which has really allowed me to be able to relax and with business, but with just life in general, because as a small business owner, entrepreneur, those two things are always going to kind of collide and happen. You're going to have the idea of what you think you should be doing versus where I'm really at. So, yeah, I think it's just been life-changing. It happened at the right time, and it gave me the community that I ultimately have been craving for a while. So
Amazing. I'm so happy that we found each other at the right time. It's been so much fun working with you and going through this season of change with you in your business and in life. And you know, I know a lot of people listening to this are going to be like, oh, okay, well, you know, I don't know. Maybe they're feeling the same. I know you moved into a smaller town, and it can be isolating when you're building a business on your own in a new town. And I'd love to know like how the community, because some people think, oh, it's all jewelry business owners, it's going to be competitive, but it's a really very supportive community, I find. What's your experience been of the other members and like interacting with the other members in the academy?
Yeah, it's been great. I think that I've made, some lifelong friends and contacts. To me, it's interesting to see where everybody is actually at. Again, kind of touching on comparing yourself, where it's just like I had no idea, what my real strengths were, where I was. So just being able to have other people at different stages, as well as like different materials, has been really interesting, because I'm not trendy, I'm not up and up with what's going on. So just being able to have other people, even when it comes to technology and kind of learning like apps and TikTok and whatnot, it's pretty funny to be able to compare notes that way and just kind of like, all we really want to do is sit down and make stuff. So we're kind of going through that all together at the same time. So yeah, it's definitely made some lifelong friends for sure.
Oh, amazing. And yeah, you know what? It's so interesting that you said that, because I find that it's the same thing with like showing up on video, and that for some people it's so uncomfortable and so like 100% no, I'm not going to do that. But when you're in that community and everyone else is doing it, you're like, you just feel safety in numbers. It's like, okay, I just feel safer with everyone else doing it with me. Do you remember, I know we mentioned before that you mentioned that you weren't a fan of being on camera.
Yeah.
How do you feel now?
Terrified. No, we're doing it anyway. No, it's fine. I don't even really think twice about it. In fact, I think I jumped on this call like, 30 seconds late. I'm like, well, it's still 2 o'clock, so I don't have like the anxiety like leading up to it whatsoever. And so for me is because I am an introvert. I'm, like I said, pretty shy. So the whole process of like putting myself out there, not even just like video, that was just the way I was putting myself out there. So like if you had said to me, walk down the street and go and talk to someone, find someone new to talk to, I would have the same type of reaction. So yeah, it's fine. It's no big deal. It's actually funny. You're essentially, well, I am alone in a room talking to myself, which I think all of us can relate to anyway, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I do want to dive a little bit deeper into this, because I think your social media and the way you show up has definitely changed over the past few months. I feel like we're seeing your personality shine through. It looks like there's a quirky, fun side of you coming through, and you're having fun with social media. I can see it through some of your content. And I'd love for you to share what would be one piece of advice to somebody who's listening who feels like, I just don't want to be on video. I feel so uncomfortable. Like, what would you say to them to give them the confidence to just start like sharing more of their personality and just enjoying the process of sharing?
well, you can't hide it, right? Like you can't be someone other than who you are. So it doesn't matter what you try to do to prepare to get ready to go through you know what I mean? It doesn't matter. You're ultimately, people are gonna figure out who you are and what you're about, even if you're not even, you know, addressing your business or what's going on or what you're doing. It's inevitable. So you can't really hide it. So you might as well just try to embrace it and have fun with it and do whatever you need to do to make it more comfortable for you. So,
Mm.
you know.
Yeah, I love that. That's great advice. I mean, some people will try not hide it, but they will try fit in like a box of what they think people want to see. Or
Yeah, yeah,
and it's very easy to do that, but the more raw, the more real, the more just like casual you can be, the less people's walls go up, because the more they feel like you're not trying to hide something, you're not trying to be someone else, you're just who you
yeah.
are, you're just showing up as you are, whatever that is going to look like, and it's going to be very different for everyone else. I would love to know, you know, you've been in the academy for a couple of months, but what would you say has been one of the biggest lessons that you've learned since joining the Jewelry Business Academy?
Hmm. Let me think about that for a minute. Well, I think ultimately for longevity in your business, you need to be true to yourself. I think that's the only thing that is going to keep you coming back and keep you moving forward. So just, yeah, I think for me, it's just remembering that, like, because we do so much of that comparing, which is good but not good. You just, everybody gets stuck up and caught up in their head, and just realizing that we're all doing the same thing.
Mm.
You know, Canadian jewelry world is a small world. We're all doing the same thing. Um, just trying to do what we love to do and make a little bit of money at it.
Yeah, definitely. So I love that as well. And I know we touched a little bit on imposter syndrome
Mhm.
and you know, not feeling adequate to be calling yourself a designer, and really letting your inner artist come out and letting yourself explore and create. And I see that with a lot of newer business owners who really struggle to um, find their, I guess, voice, their artistic
Yeah.
voice. And I'd love to know, like, what would your advice be to somebody who's new and just getting started and is like, okay, well, I'm only just getting started, so I haven't been hiding my like whatever it is I'm wanting to design, but I actually don't know how to find it. Like, I don't even know the first step to finding what it is that I'm wanting to design. What would your
Mhm.
advice be to them?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be different for everybody. I think for me, it's hours in the studio, it's hours at your bench, it's hours on the table, it's wherever you are, whatever you have. It's just putting in the time to be able to ultimately figure out what you like. You know, social media allows you to be able to see something from everywhere. But the brands and the people that are truly, you know, successful with it, that look cohesive, that, you know, everybody's trying to kind of look like or move towards, they've put in hours and hours and hours and hours, design or related, right? Like it's not just a formula that you can kind of like take and here is what's trendy right now, 2023 spring, and this is what we're putting out. It just really has to come from what you like, what you want to wear, what you want to be around, because ultimately you spend, you know, more than a full-time job a week doing it. So you've really got to make sure that you're proud to wear it and proud to put it out there. That
Mm.
for me anyway, though, right? Um,
That's
but then
actually really powerful. Yeah, I love that you shared that, because I think the key is a lot of people get stuck in their heads, especially in the early stages. And
mhm.
if you just spend so long trying to perfect what it's going to look like in your mind, you're not going to get anywhere. And I think I've shared this before, maybe on somebody else's podcast when I was a guest, but there's this story about this photography teacher who gives his students, he splits the class into two groups. One group is graded based on getting one perfect photo for the semester.
Hmm.
The other group is graded based on getting a lot of like average photos, and they get getting grades based on volume. And at the end of the semester, the group with the highest grade actually was the one with volume, because they actually got the best perfect picture as well. Because the reality is, to get really good at something, you need volume, you need practice. You can only do so much like planning in your mind.
Yeah.
And then it's like going and sitting and working and making and refining. And that process, there's no fast tracking through that. And I think some people in today's world are looking for like, oh, I just want to go straight into what it is, like the end result. And it's no long-term sustainable businesses went straight in for the perfect product right off the get-go. It was a refinement process, and seeing what they like and seeing what their customers are responding to as well. So I think that's really good advice. And I know you're really open with the fact that you have ADHD and you only were diagnosed a couple of months ago. And so I'd love it if you could share like how that's impacted the way that you do business over the past few months.
Yeah. That was my 40th birthday present. my ADHD diagnosis. I've learned a lot of systems, I think, that work. I have an ADHD coach as well too. So I've learned a lot of systems, and I honestly couldn't tell you the difference now anymore, what those systems are like compared to someone else and why those work. I just know for me that I was chronically overwhelmed and never had enough time, and just felt like everything was on my plate all at once, and that's all that existed, but I could never get things off of my plate. So I would just say that I've been able to design a structure and an amount of hours and a system that is based off of how I feel. So how I physically feel, how I emotionally feel, how drained I am. Working for myself is giving that flexibility, I think, which is really important. So I can, stay up till 2 in and sleep in until 10, or I can just use the energy that I have when I have it. So I'm still like, I'm new, I'm still learning, for sure, just trying to understand it. Even though it makes perfect sense and fits, it's always lingering in the back of my mind of like, well, my brain doesn't work like other people's, and that comparison thing again of, designing work. Ultimately, you have a business, you want to sell work, so we get kind of caught up in the idea that like, well, what do people want to buy? And that's not the question to ask. It's, well, what do I want to make? And then there's enough people to buy that, you'll find your community. And oddly enough, I don't know, I didn't know prior, but a lot of my community is neurodivergent. A lot of people that do follow me do relate to that, and kind of it keeps popping up, and it's like, oh, so like I said, like you can't hide who you are. So just kind of find what works for you, which, learning about ADHD, now I know what works for me.
It's definitely a process, and it definitely is a bit of a journey. I know it wasn't like a quick fix for you, and it's still under refinement. But I love that advice to, see what works for you and what works for your energy levels as well. And even someone who doesn't have ADHD, I'm very much all for tuning in to how you feel on a day and doing the work that feels good that day. You can't always do that as an entrepreneur, but when you are a business owner, you want to create a business that feels good. And so part of that is being like, okay, how do I structure my tasks and my days in a way that I can work on things when I have high energy that need high energy? And then the lower energy days, I have tasks that are lower energy day tasks as well. So I think anyone listening can really benefit from what you shared there. And I don't know if you're comfortable with this, but if you're not, we can move right on. If you are, I can see the scared look on your face. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna run away now.
But we're doing it anyway.
But I'd love to, if you could talk a little bit about, your experience with sort of burnout and healing and having to take time away from your business to really rest and recover, which I know was really, really challenging for you. So if you are open to it, do you want to just share as much of your story as you're comfortable with, and just one piece of advice for someone who's listening? I know a lot of listeners have like chronic illnesses or extreme fatigue or are just burnt out. and they have to step away from their business, and they feel so much guilt and stress and anxiety around doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think it was shortly into when we first met. I have a couple of other health conditions, one of them being anemia. So I've been working for the last years, 2.5 years or so, with my iron. So just that in itself, on top of I have hypothyroidism, a rare condition or a rare version of hypothyroidism as well too. So just trying to balance those two things, and on top of ADHD, for me is always, oh, I never know how I'm going to feel. It's always a gamble. So when we first met, my iron was quite low. I was, sent for infusions, back to an internist, up, down, left, right, center. I had a surgery as well too that I had been putting off for the last couple of years, which just threw me. I don't know how to nicely say it, right? Yeah. Anyway, I'm still recovering now. It's 4 months after the fact. So just, I didn't have a choice. I was just physically completely exhausted, no energy. And it was the first time I think that I experienced that I didn't have a choice and that I actually couldn't. I was struggling to just walk as a result of my iron being so low, and then after surgery as well too. So that seems to always kind of come up with my health conditions as well too. So it's always a bit of a juggle, but I just couldn't. So you were gracious enough to allow me, or to tell me to take the time, and I'll see you later, do what you need to do. And then I just kind of sat there and thought, like, now what? Like, this is, really all I know how to do is focus on my business and work too much. So now what? But within that has come a lot of realization that, you've got to have the down to have the up. So might as well embrace the down. So yeah, but no, it's been interesting because we always think that if you have a goal, you always think that it's linear getting there, right? But it's just not. And I think that's one of the things that I've learned the most over the course. It's just not, between life and everything else. It just is not a straight line. And you probably will never arrive anyway. So
yeah,
a roller coaster.
That's really powerful, actually. I think a lot of people think life and business building is just like one straight line, and it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. There's ups and downs, there's different seasons in like business and in life. And you've gone through probably one of the toughest seasons, and
yeah,
and you're on the other side, which is really amazing. And I think the advice for people who are listening and who need to take that time away, it's not easy at all, but sometimes you just have to do that, and it's worth it in the long run.
Yeah, before you're forced to have to do it, right? Kind of
unprepared.
It's so funny that we kind of wait for something to happen externally. You're either like reactive or proactive, and I think we're all just kind of collectively moving towards being reactive. And it's like, well, you do have a choice sometime day. You don't have to push yourself that hard, but
yeah.
I
think a lot of people have stopped listening to their bodies. I think we just got used to that, especially I found in the corporate world, you were forced not to listen to your body. You're never supposed to be sick. You just have to keep going like a robot, no matter what. And then it's really hard to tune in, even as a business owner. And I've had to work really hard with that as well. And it's like on sick days, like some part of me sometimes like automatically like, no, you're going to work through this, and you have to like register like, hey, no, this is a sick day, just chill, or this is you just need a chill day. So anyone who's listening to this, definitely just take that time when you're needing it. Rather take a few days so you don't have to take a long-term time off. But I'd love to chat a little bit about boundaries. I know this is something you've done a lot of work on. You're really working on fully embracing. And I know that you've started implementing much stronger boundaries in business and in life. And I'd love to know how these have impacted you, and how having boundaries have impacted your energy in your business as well.
I'd say I have a lot less contact with people, that's for sure. I'd say I'm a lot more in my studio more productive, getting stuff done, doing what I want to do versus kind of being pulled in a few different directions. And for me, it was like, well, just because you can doesn't mean that you should. And especially with, custom work and repairs, and I still struggle with it where people will contact me and like, oh, I have this and was wondering if you could make a ring or this, that, or the rest of it. And I really have to like, well, I said no, that I wouldn't take this on anymore because ultimately I don't have time for anything else. Part of ADHD for me is kind of that juggle of it. So I won't have time. I will never get back to doing what I want to do. But having boundaries, like personally and professionally, just allows me to do what I want to do and what I love to do without having to feel guilty for it because I don't have anything else on my plate. And so I really don't have nothing, any other excuse. So yeah, that's been a great lesson. It's been a good 6 months, hasn't it? I'm doing it.
You're doing it. You're doing it, and you're just embracing it.
It's been a lot, but I mean, with that you learn and you grow. So yeah.
I love it, and it's been incredible watching you like implement these things, which honestly boundaries are one of the hardest things for people to implement. Like you can give them strategies, you can give them this, and boundaries is the one where they're like, okay, but I don't know if it feels too easy or if it's the guilt, but it's one of the hardest things for people to actually implement. So you know, I think it's definitely good for people listening to hear like your experience with it and how it sort of helps you focus on what it is that you're wanting to be doing as well. And so I'd love to know, like, what are some of the other wins that you've experienced being part of the Academy?
Besides finding myself getting healthy and doing what I want to do, well, I feel like I'm starting over again. So I feel like where I was when I came out of school, I'm optimistic and enjoying what I do again. So I think as a whole, that's a result of being in the academy. So having that support and having, people that understand that are in the same position as well too, that are, we're not all beginners and just starting out, right? We have failed. There are a lot of us that have made mistakes, made big mistakes, costly mistakes. So I think for me, it's like I have that passion back again because I've been able to get a lot of stress and other things and get very, very clear on what I want to be doing. And that brings me a lot of joy.
I love that so much. And it's been so much fun working with you and having you in the academy and watching this new like chapter of your journey. And I'd love to know, there's going to be people listening who are like, okay, well, I'm a little bit curious about the Jewelry Business Academy, but I'm not too sure if I'm comfortable making an investment in myself or my business. Like, what would your advice be to somebody listening who is like curious and considering getting that support, but feels a little bit nervous about investing in themselves?
How do I sum it up? Because I do get people messaging me bi-weekly saying, I'm thinking of signing up. How did you feel about it? What do you think about it? Is it worth it? And I'm like, well, if you have the money, it's worth it, because ultimately at the end of the day, you don't know what you're missing and you don't know what you're actually really going to get out of it. So you can kind of read on paper and you can know that you're going to be doing, some marketing, some jewelry specific stuff, but you don't know how much personal growth you're going to have. And that ultimately for me ended up being the thing that I was the most surprised about. And was the most life-changing. So if you can afford it and you have the money and you're in the position to do it, then just do it, because you're going to get so much more out of it that you're not even aware of now. So you don't know what you don't know. I've had no regrets whatsoever since I committed to it. I don't think it was a no-brainer for me, but it's like, but what else are you doing? If you're at the point where you want to be, okay, great. But if you're not, then you're going to have to find a way to get there. And I don't know of any other resources of getting there, right? Like I said, I've toyed going back to school and teaching all sorts of things, but at the end of the day, it's like, no, if you're a jewelry business entrepreneur in Canada, I don't know what else you would do. Apprenticeships are limited. Yeah, so it's kind of a no-brainer. Take the course, just do it. Figure out what you don't know, and then figure out all of the things that, yeah. that are that Robin will tell you and teach you how to do.
Amazing. Yeah, you know what? It's so funny that that people have been reaching out to you. I think Julie mentioned as well. She gets a lot of DMs.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a really great advice. You know, it's seeing like, I guess, getting clear on where it is that you're wanting to go and what it is that you're wanting to build, and then being like, okay, well, what do I need kind of to get there? And so I'd love to know, what have been some of your biggest wow moments in your business and career in the industry over your whole career? Like, what would you say have been like one or two wow moments?
I think making this kind of shift the last little while has been the biggest wow moment. Of I had kind of forgotten that people actually like my work, and that people will purchase it as well too. And that you can be just as busy doing your own thing and being happy as working at something that's not maybe necessarily as fulfilling, and something that you're not as passionate about. So you can do what you want to do and actually get paid for it. Which I for some reason just thought that those two could never line up.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Like,
That's
but why not?
powerful.
Yeah, why not? Just do it and figure it out. I just think that it's a matter of time. If you're committed and you're putting in the hours and you're doing the directed work and you've got those goals, I think like it's ultimately going to end up coming together at some point.
Yeah, I totally agree. And actually, I have a podcast talking about this. I think it was episode like 40 or something, talking about focusing on systems and not goals. And I think this, if we break down what you just shared, it's kind of like, well, getting clear on what your goal is, but then looking at what systems, what strategies, what do you need to be doing on a daily basis to move your business closer towards those goals. And maybe you'll hit them earlier, but maybe it will take 6 months longer or 2 years longer. Like, it's going to be different for every business owner. But ultimately, if you are like, okay, well, this is really important to me, I want to do what I love doing in life and I want to make money doing that, getting clear on what is it that you need to actually do to make that feasible, and then being really consistent and really intentional with the work that you're doing, and setting yourself and your business up to move closer to those goals. So I'd love to know if there has been one book that has really impacted your entrepreneurial journey that you'd recommend to our listeners.
I'm not sure I've ever finished a book in my life.
Oh, that's amazing. That's totally fine.
That's the ADHD. Yeah.
That's totally fine. Is there a podcast?
Yeah, what do I consume? Sun Yi is actually someone that I follow who, around the same time that we met, is kind of like made things click for me as well too. He does do podcasting as a marketing business, I believe it is, sorry, Cindy. But his way of looking at things is really unique. I think that for me, it was just more than like reading, watching other people's experiences. So just kind of, getting on TikTok and kind of just watching other people's experiences, and weeding out kind of what you relate to and what you don't. So he's one person that I
Amazing. Amazing. We'll link him in the show notes. But this has been so much fun, Suzanne. It's been so much fun chatting to you, diving more into your story. And I just want to ask, before we dive into the end of this, is there anything else that you'd like to add to anything that we haven't touched on? Anything else you wanted to share with our listeners?
Yeah, I think it's just, for me, it's just embrace who you are. And if you're not 100% sure of who that is and what direction it's going, just spend the time to get clear on that. And then everything else will come together. I mean, I searched for a long time to get some help with ADHD and to figure out kind of why things weren't lining up for me. And I think that those things only happen by putting in the time and the effort. So yeah, monetarily, however it is, right? Just commit and go.
That's powerful. Commit and go. I really, really love that. And it's been so much fun chatting to you today,
Yeah.
Suzanne. And I know that we're going to have lots of listeners who are going to be feeling really inspired and excited after listening to our conversation. And they're going to want to follow along on your journey and connect with you. So, where can our listeners find you and how can they support you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram as Design Designs a lot. I have a website as well too. And through there you can email me. I don't do phone calls. I don't do that sort of thing. I'm in Port Lambton, more than welcome to come by the studio here, make an appointment, send me an email. But yeah, mostly just between Facebook, Instagram, just showing behind the scenes. I actually really enjoy doing videos now, so you can, yeah, see what I'm up to there.
Amazing. We're going to link all of that in the show notes. And I love that you're loving the videos now
Absolutely
and
right.
your content. I love watching your content. Yeah. So definitely if you're listening, go check out and connect with Suzanne. But thank you so much, Suzanne. This has been so much fun.
Yeah, always fun. Thank you.
Okay.